Hey, welcome to Mike the Baptist. I'm Mike the Baptist. That's Neil the Andrews.
I am.
Over there. How are you, Neil?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I haven't seen you in a while. You've been traipsing the world again.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in just a second.
Oh.
And hello to H.D. Jones.
Hey, good to see you, Mike.
Good to see you, too. And glad you all are back for another rambunctious episode of Mike the Baptist, where we are going to talk. It's a podcast. That's what you do. Well, the way I understand it, so we're going to do it. Speaking of Neil, you went to Italy or somewhere this time.
Yeah,
You've been traipsing over the planet a lot, sort of.
Actually vacationed, yeah.
That's neat.
Yeah.
Well, where'd you go, briefly? Where did you go?
We flew into Florence, which is a really neat place. I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We stayed there for a couple days, went to Rome, which is like, it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Once you see the history, it's kind of Americanized.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't love that one as much.
Touristed up?
Yeah. And then ended up on the Amalfi Coast, which is the west side, about 2/3 of the way down the coast, and that's beautiful.
Nice.
Just looks like a great big, it's the Mediterranean, so it looks like a great big water body of tidy bowl. It's that color. It's
right.
just
Interesting.
fabulous, yeah.
So, is the olive oil better over there than it is here?
It's noticeable.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
'Cause I'm a big olive oil fan.
And so are the sun-dried tomatoes.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that's traditional Italian like that, you notice the difference.
Yep.
Tomatoes actually taste like tomatoes over there.
You got the acid and all that in there?
They're definitely different.
Yeah.
Really good.
Is there limestone? I know in Arkansas, tomatoes are great because of the limestone. That's where the acidity comes from in a tomato.
Huh.
I thought it was cow manure.
Well, that too. But,
Okay.
So here locally in the Middle Tennessee Kroger's, if you buy Granger County tomatoes, they're grown in Granger County, Tennessee, and their soil has the limestone in it, and you can tell the difference in their tomatoes and everybody else's.
Wow.
And that's what it is. Anyway, welcome back.
Thank you.
Glad you made it back,
Thank you. Me too.
safe and sound.
Yep.
And it's good to know about the olive oil. I've always wondered, is it really better there? You would think it would have to be.
There's a documentary, and I can't remember where it is. It may be Frontline or something about that business, and it's very much it's controlled by mobsters, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of fake olive oil that gets sent out in the United States.
I have seen some of that.
Fascinating stuff.
In fact, I may have seen the same documentary because something made me put my olive oil. I used to have a motorhome before I sold it, and I kept olive oil in it. And I didn't want to experiment with my bottle in the house, so I went out to Flaminkin's, we called it, and got the bottle of olive oil there and put it in the freezer because true olive oil won't freeze. Anyway, it froze a little. I was kind of mad about that, but anyway, glad you're back.
Thank you.
And had a
Glad
good
to be
trip. I
nothing,
saw.
nothing like a long trip to make you happy to get home.
That's true. Yeah, you're always happy to go and happy to get home. Hey, Steve, you been anywhere?
No.
Me too. I go to Walmart
That's it.
2 or 3 times a day. And other than that,
Pretty boring right now.
yeah. Well, it's not so much boring. It's just like,
My mind's pretty boring.
maybe it is boring. Speaking of boring, no, that's not the right way to say this. Send us an email. Comments at MikeTheBaptist.com. We get a few emails here and there now, and I'm happy to get those. I want to encourage you to stop what you're doing and send us an email. If you're driving down the interstate, pull over, send us an email. Just make us feel good about it.
Type while you drive.
On the front porch today, I like to go back in time. It's always interesting to me to go back in time. And I think people listening, from comments I hear, kind of like that. They kind of get to know people by hearing how nuts you used to be when you were younger and even older. But I like to go back to youth. That's where I want to go on the front porch today. I want to know from you guys, and I'll share briefly too, what did teenagers do where you're from when they were young? Where did they get together? Where did they congregate? What did they do with their time? Neil?
Teenagers. Okay, well, my good memories are the ones in the town I was born in. Do you remember where that is?
Oh, hang on a second. Dewey H?
Sounds like a sweater.
You'll remember it.
Angora.
Angola.
Angola.
Yeah. Right.
Not Africa, but Indiana.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it very much looks like Franklin. So it's designed that same way. There's a monument in the center. They have a different soldier on top of it. But the streets go out north, south, east, west. There's shops that go maybe 3 blocks, and then after that it just kind of dissipates, and there's farms and stuff. And so I'd go visit there because my grandparents lived there. So I'd go visit there rather than hanging around in Fort Wayne. And the kids would drive around. They just cruise. They just cruise around the circle in the center of town and then take off and go back that way, and then they come back this way. And there's a drive-in out there, and they'd hang out there.
Drive-in is just like cafe type drive-in.
Yeah.
Ice cream cones.
Yeah. Root beer.
Oh, yeah.
So that was kind of, it's not all that exciting, but that was what they do, and they'd hang out at the drive-in. And
so did you have like a go-to crew that you would meet up with on a Friday or Saturday, and your crew would kind of be a little posse roaming around town there?
Yeah, there were 3 of us.
Right. Yep. That's about right.
But once I started playing music, it's like that all goes out the window because you play on Fridays.
Yep. So you disappear from the social scene, or that side of it.
Right. Yep.
Interesting.
It's kind of like when you're playing in those kind of bands that are just getting going. You do wedding receptions, stuff like that, but you'll always play on New Year's Eve. So the first time I had a New Year's Eve that I wasn't playing, I didn't know what to do. It was like, what do you do? Yeah.
It's different when you're on that side of the microphone and the other side.
Yeah.
And when it's time for you to have that fun, you don't.
It's not fun. I'd rather be working.
Yeah. Let me. Y'all mind if I step up and sing one? Interesting. Angola.
Yeah.
H.
Man,
what did your crews do?
The metropolis of Greenbrier,
Tennessee, yes.
We there really wasn't a lot in Greenbrier, to be honest. And so you had to either go to Springfield and then we cruise around the McDonald's, or you'd go to Rivergate and cruise around the mall. So that was the 2 big things that you would do. And then you get bored of doing that and just go to somebody's house and hang out. So that was always kind of weird because you run into people now as adults. There's a lady in our church, and she was like, I think I remember you cruising around Rivergate Mall. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope not.
What do you remember?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I do remember those things because it was like, I don't know, it seems like you cruised more when it was either really hot or really cold. And you had your members only jacket on and all that stuff. And whoever got in the back seat, they couldn't see out the window good, and you'd be all mad, and it was kind of crazy, but never got in any big fights or anything. There were some words yelled at people.
Did you have a little go-to crew?
Yeah, there was about 4 or 5 of us that just kind of hung out together, and we were part of a larger group. And that's what if you went to Greenbrier, a lot of people just went to the school parking lot and hung out in the parking lot and talked and stuff. But then it was like they'd leave and then go to Springfield to McDonald's, get something to eat. And one time at McDonald's, everything's everything, McChicken, McShake. So a buddy of mine decided that he'd come up with a really good idea. He was going to eat half of his sundae, his little sundae he got. He's going to eat half of it, and then he pulled this hair out of a girl's head and put it on there, and he was going to go back up there and complain so he could get another one, So he really got 1.5 for the same price. And the lady was like, "Sir, I'm sorry, that doesn't match any of the people that's working back here. So I don't
The
think
hair didn't match.
I don't think that's one of ours, And she said, I think it's just somebody you're with. He got really mad and he said, "Well, crap," and then turned around and walked off.
Like a famous moment in y'all's history out there.
Yeah,
McCrap.
On a chicken, that thing on their tail that the feathers are stuck
nuggets.
in, the nub.
The nuggets.
I've always thought they should cut those off. McDonald's should fry them up, put them in a little thing called McNubs. Chicken McNubs.
Yep.
They probably wouldn't, but that would work in your hometown too.
Yep.
Here, a common thread. So mine is the same story. Kids got together and cruised town. We went from one end of town to the other, up the top of Backbone Mountain, and then back down. And everybody stopped on top of Backbone Mountain. You could oversee the town. It was real neat up there. Had a great overlook. Or you could stop at Medicare Pharmacy parking lot, or the high school parking lot, or a grocery store. Yeah, same story. Nobody had cell phones. I'm assuming y'all didn't have cell phones.
Did y'all go rolling? Did you ever go rolling?
We did at times,
Yeah.
but we might have gotten a little more ornery than just rolling at times.
This is the family program, so.
We shot bottle rockets onto the night watchman's front porch of his house a lot.
Oh.
Me and some buddies of mine. That always got some excitement going in town.
There was a girl in our class that we picked on quite a bit. She was fun. I hope she was good with it. She may be in counseling now, but anyway, we decided to go roll Boom Boom's house. So we go over to Boom Boom's house, and me and these 3 or 4 guys. We pepper the tree with toilet paper and everything. We go back. I think we went back to my house, and we're sitting there, and one of them realized his class ring had come off while he was throwing toilet paper. So we had to go back the next day to look for the ring. Well, then we had to clean up all the toilet paper because they knew who was the people that were out there. It's like, you're such an idiot, you know?
Have you noticed that rolling went down when toilet paper prices went up?
Yeah.
Not so much rolling anymore.
Yeah. During COVID, you couldn't do that.
Yeah. You could, but it was like, people would be out there rolling it up, bringing it in the house.
Yep.
Yeah, same story. I wonder what kids do nowadays. I often wonder, because you don't see them out roaming around the towns so much.
I think this is what they do.
Oh, yeah. You could be right.
Oops.
It does happen a lot, but anyway, interesting. If you're a young person and you happen to be listening to this, send us an email, comments@mikethebaptist.com. Tell us what you do on a Friday and Saturday night when you get together. I could have gone into a lot more detail about what we did, but
yeah.
But now listen, I got to add that I'm from the Ozarks, Buffalo River country. So we had it was like a national park to run around in. And we would run those dirt roads and the woods. Matter of fact, where I'm from, there are woods in town. So anywhere you go, there's woods. But the woods and the country was a big part of growing up where I'm from. And you ran around there as equally as much as you did in town. And there's all kinds of stories.
He says with a grin.
Yes, with a grin. Occasional tear. Okay, interesting. We'll take a break and come back and talk about some stuff we found in the Bible.
Some of us have missed a lot of living, a lot of time, right down the drain. Time we could have really felt alive. But missing out on all that living doesn't have to be a problem anymore. Now there's controlled released formula Domus-Out, the only prescription medication that can actually make you get up off your keister and do something. Domus-Out is chemically balanced to provide you with energy, stamina, and wild hallucinations, so you can do everything you can possibly think of while you still have the time to do it. Talk to your doctor about a comprehensive plan that includes Domus-Out to help you revitalize and maybe even take over the world. Until you know how Domus-Out will affect you, you shouldn't drive or operate oil drilling rigs or fighter jet airplanes. Be sure you won't need to sleep for at least the next 12 weeks. Tell your doctor right away if you feel like you're in the Wizard of Oz or if your eyeballs pop out of their sockets. Don't eat certain foods like bread, water, vegetables, meat, or tangerine jello. Make sure you have an MRI scan every 30 minutes. Avoid fireworks, flames, and any kind of heat over 60 degrees or below 55. Call 911 immediately if you see Elvis. To avoid long-term medical damage, don't take Domus-Out while breathing or having a pulse. So eat right, rest a little bit, but if that's not enough, ask your doctor about Domus-Out. And don't miss out on another second of life.
Hey, we're back. Did you hear much about the Bible in Italy? Do people talk about it much over there?
It's fascinating because it has a historic significance there. Mm-hmm. But what you see, Catholicism is it. Mm-hmm. I didn't see anything else there. Went through the Vatican. Take a couple hours to do that.
To the
Vatican Museum. Well, what I realized this time is there's an awful lot of. I'm not trying to badmouth it. I'm just saying from a historical perspective or a theological perspective, it's fascinating. They have just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of statues and paintings and collections of things. And I've started talking, when I go into those places, I always talk to people that work there because I want to know what's going on inside the there. And I said something to one of them because I saw a couple of things. We read in Ephesians about temple worship, but it was the Artemision, which was one of the 7 wonders of the world. Big temple, huge. It's no longer in existence. It was destroyed. But it was worshiping Artemis. So in the Vatican, there's a statue of Artemis in there, and it's an older one. And I won't go into detail about the statue because it's vulgar.
Right. Yeah.
It is vulgar. And so I saw that, and then I can't remember if it's Apollo or Perseus. I don't remember which one. It's one of them holding Medusa's head. And I went to the one docent and I went, what are these doing in the Catholic Church? And she said, well, the Vatican's been collecting works of art before they get destroyed or disappear or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but there's a Pieta over there. There's Jesus and his mom over there, and then there's this here. So it's very interesting. Not a lot of conversation. We were in St. Peter's Basilica, which is this massive basilica that's part of the Vatican. And they were having a service while all the tourists were walking around in there.
Really?
Pipe organ, choir. The father was reading the homily, and I mean it was very interesting.
Just not a lot of discussion you hear about.
No, they don't talk about. I don't know that they don't. I didn't encounter.
Right. Yeah, I was just curious if you just ran into it, where you hear people talking about it.
Well, they're talking funny words. I don't speak Italian.
I guess that makes sense.
Or Italian.
They could be talking about it and you not know.
Yeah.
Right. And I've noticed traveling-wise, just anywhere that you go, if you try to speak their language a little bit, they usually go, that's right, let's talk English, because they all speak English anyway. So
it's probably entertaining to them to let you try.
Probably. Oh, yeah. Yeah. They're laughing at you. But yeah, I didn't notice a lot of that. And most of the sad thing is, so Florence or Rome or any of those cities like that, the Catholic churches are all over, and during the daytime the doors are open, so you can always go in and you look at there's beautiful artwork in there. I did notice I saw more of Mary than I did of Jesus in most of them, which was intriguing. Should I be saying those things on,
Sure.
Okay. All right.
It's wide open here.
But when Sunday came around, I heard church bells, but I didn't see people as we walked past them. I didn't see people in the church, or it would be very few people in the church. So that's kind of a sad thing to see that.
Interesting.
There's probably thriving ministries, but I didn't see any of them.
We're just not as not all on TV maybe there. I just thought of that.
Right.
Speaking of the Bible, what do we find in there this week to talk about?
We are reading probably one of the most bizarre stories in the Old Testament. Balaam and his talking donkey.
It is kind of bizarre.
It's a bizarre story. Big picture, a king who's watching the Israelites come towards him as they're moving toward the promised land decides that he's going to employ a local seer, a guy of wisdom, to put these curses on Israel. And he goes through the motions. I don't think you can say that he's a true follower of God. He's not an Israelite. But he goes through the motions, puts these altars up, kills the fatted calf, prays to God, and God speaks to him. But it's always a blessing on Israel instead of a curse, because the other king obviously wanted a curse to fall on Israel. And through the whole thing, I think there's 3 prominent blessings, and then there's 4 sub blessings, but they're all blessings over Israel. And it's just kind of a weird story. It just is odd. One of the things that's odd is that you see this character that God actually speaks to and uses, who's very cultural in his beliefs toward God. We'd call it cultural Christianity today. We see that sometimes in our politics, or sometimes with our athletes, or sometimes with celebrities, that, they want to say, I just want to give all God the glory, for helping me write this song, Tequila Makes Your Clothes Fall Off, and you're like, okay, you're using the God card, but I don't really think God helped you write that song.
Mm-hmm.
And so this guy named Balaam is just an odd dude. But he has some success along the way. Anything jump out to you, Neil, as you read that?
Well, that's funny that you said that, because I was thinking about it. It brought back to mind one of the bands I was familiar with, their producer, and it's somebody that you'd know. It was a 4-piece vocal band in the 80s. And the producer was showing me a video of one of their concerts, and they're excellent singers, really, really good. And they did this whole thing that was their testimony, because you're talking about cultural Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
They did this whole thing. The song was about how the power of a praying mom. And it was like, wow, that's really good. And they're sharing their testimony and stuff. And then the song right after, it's about bumping in the back seat.
Yeah.
Like, and I said that to him. I went, how do you correlate? He said, it's cultural. It's part of the culture. It's just, so yes. What I thought was intriguing about that was, I didn't know. First of all, you're saying he was a seer, or sometimes they call him a prophet,
Right.
And they looked at it more as fortune telling kind of thing. But there's that one of those passages in there where it talks about them taking money to him, so he was getting paid for his services. I didn't know that before, and I've read that I don't know how many times. And I also thought, isn't that intriguing that God would use a dumb animal? And obviously Balaam was a smart guy. He was successful business-wise or whatever. Smart guy, seems logical and stuff. God uses a dumb donkey to talk through because the smart guy's not listening. And that was kind of a big point to me.
Well, the Bible's full of stuff like that, kind of bring you down, a notch or two.
Yeah.
But that's one of those stories, even if you're all churched up and you run into a conversation about that, you really don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
Because it's unbelievable, but you're supposed to believe it. So,
and this is still during the time of Moses. You read it and it almost seems out of context, but Moses is still the leader of the Israelites. And it's like, okay, you start putting all the pieces together here, and it's just a really odd story that a donkey can see the angel of the Lord, but nobody else can. And then the angel speaks directly to Balaam and says, hey, why are you beating your donkey? He was doing the right thing because I was going to kill you. He basically was saving your life. It kind of makes me think about how many times do we try to, even like politicians or celebrities, how many times do we try to use God or bend God's word to fit our life? I know several years ago, this guy came into our church. He's a super nice guy. He wanted to set an appointment with me one day. And he came in, and he probably talked 2 hours about how God had brought him to Temple Baptist, and God had brought him to his wife, and God had just ordained all these things in his life, Well, about 4 or 5 years later, he comes in and sits down. And he goes, God told me to divorce my wife, and I'm leaving Temple Baptist Church. And I was like, wait a minute. You just told me that God ordained you to marry this woman, and now you're telling me God's telling you to divorce. And so I think we have to be really careful that we don't spiritualize our choices over God's choices, or try to put God in the middle of our mess sometimes. It's like, okay, God, I know I'm lying on my taxes, but please help the IRS not to come after me. Well, God's like, well, if you don't cheat, then you won't have to worry about, how many times have we done stuff like that? Maybe if you had prayed harder, you wouldn't have gotten in trouble, right? God, help me not to get in trouble doing this thing that I'm not supposed to be doing, and help me not get caught. And we kind of spiritualize a lot of things, and really none of it has to do anything with God's will. And that's kind of part of this story is God was not willing to curse Israel. He just wasn't willing to do that. He wasn't willing to be manipulated, even though the players in the scene think they're manipulating God. The king thinks he can buy a manipulation of luck, call it whatever you want, but I'm going to pay for Balaam to curse Israel, and he can't, which is kind of ironic because he's really not a believer in God, so to speak, but he still can't curse them publicly. But privately, he finds a way to kind of hurt them.
Isn't it Western culture though that can take something like Christianity and twist it all up and make it become a lot cheaper than what it really is? I mean, I ask you about, do they talk about the Bible over in Italy? You'd think the closer you get to the origins of things, the more that would be in the front of mind, but maybe not. Who knows? Of course, they're speaking Italian. You don't know if they were or not. But
that's right.
I'm just saying that, the whole time we're talking about this, I'm thinking about how all of us, I think, even those who are soaked up in churches.
Yep.
Well, that was a pill that just dropped. I don't know where that came from. But anyway.
Magic pill.
The magic pill. But I think we all kind of use it in a way. We don't mean to. I don't think we mean to. I really don't think anybody means to use that. If they do, there's something really evil about if you're actually using it. But I think all of us want it to fit. And there's times when it doesn't fit, what you're thinking or doing. It just doesn't fit, but you do it anyway. It's like those stars you see on the award shows who rattle off these obscenities and then want to thank Jesus, for getting them there.
Right.
And like, people probably look at me once in a while like that too. It makes you think. It does make you think.
Yeah, it's the whole idea that we're trying to create God and who he is and how he responds, as opposed to him changing us. Years ago when I was in college, I had this roommate that was just annoying. I mean, just annoying. And so one of my friends came over, and he didn't like this dude anyway. And they got into some argument. Well, the guy that came over, I mean, he reared back, was ready to punch this guy. And the guy, he was such a wimp. The guy's defense was, "Oh, look at you, Mr. Christian. You're going to punch me. Oh, yes, Mr. Christian." And my friend was so frustrated by him, he was like, "I've been pretty good this week. I've got a few sins to waste." And I've had to laugh about that because he didn't punch him, though. That was good. But isn't that how that works in our life? Sometimes we think, well, I haven't gotten drunk in a long time, so I deserve one.
I got a few coming.
Yeah, I deserve to let my hair down and go do something crazy because I hadn't done that in a while. And God's like, I'm not asking you to be good sometimes. I'm calling you to be holy all the time.
Yeah. And
it really comes back to this idea: are we really following the God we say we're following? Because God spoke to Balaam. I mean, it's there in the scriptures, but I don't think he's a God follower. And are we really following the God we say we're following? Because there's a lot, including myself, there's a lot of hypocrisy in what we say we believe and then how we live.
Yeah,
it's nominal Christianity.
Yes.
Really, and I've talked about that in regard to Ireland before, and seeing that they would claim, I don't know, a huge percentage, like 45% is Catholic and 38% is Protestant, or something like that. And yet, the people that use that as an excuse to attack somebody else for whatever, it's not beliefs, it's about national identity. And that's a convenience to fall into those categories. And I'm sorry if my friends are listening from Ireland, but
oops.
It just is. And when you look at how many people are true born again believers, it's minuscule. It's very, very small, and it's kind of I've used this song before. Have it all. You can have it all, Lord.
Yep.
Every part of my world, take this life and breathe on. I can't remember the last line, but it doesn't say have it all except And I've learned that in my life. It's real easy to go, okay, well, I want to give God my finances. Okay, that's good. Do you want to give him your family too? But that's what he asks of us, is to give it all to him. And when you and I struggle with it all the time. I mean, there are times that I'm better at surrendering and being obedient, and I don't do that 100% all the time. But it's an ongoing thing in my mind too. And I see that in this too, because it's funny, Balaam basically is doing a fleece almost when it comes to it, because he hears from God and God says, yeah, don't do that. And then he goes back to him again and goes, basically he's going, are you sure about that? Can't we just go down here? And God goes, yeah, go ahead.
Check it one more time.
Yeah, you go for it. That's kind of what to me, as I read that, that's what I get out of that. And so when he encounters that angel and the donkey's talking to him, God's going, yep, I don't want you doing that. Yeah, I want you doing it. And if you read before that part of the story too, it's an interesting thing to see the Israelites as they go through different areas. They go into another area and they go to whoever the head people in there and say, can we pass through your land? We don't want anything. We're not going to take anything. We won't drink your water. We won't touch your crops. And every one of those places that they do that, the places come against them and want to do battle with them, and they're like, it's
I think
it's intriguing.
The big picture of Balaam is, we have to ask the question, do we really love God for being God, or do we love God for what we get out of him being our God?
Right.
So
do you love him for who he is,
right,
as opposed to what he can do?
Right. Tony Evans had a thing recently. He talked about there's only one source. Everything else is a resource, including your health, your spouse, your children, your job. Even for pastors, man, our calling and our character. I remember a pastor friend of mine was doing a conference, and I heard him say this, and it kind of set me back. He said somebody had lied about him, and he said he was adamant that he was going to, get an attorney and do this and da-da-da and set his name straight. And he said, God kind of pushed him back in his chair one morning while he was studying, and he says, don't forget, your character belongs to me. Let me fight for it. Instead of you fighting for it. And that's hard.
Yeah.
For us as men, I think especially because we're fix-it people.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's just fix it.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I take away from Balaam is, am I using God where it's convenient? Do I go to Zaxby's and say, I want my 10% discount because, oh, by the way, I'm a Christian, I went to church today. But if you're not going to give me a discount, I may not come back here, so.
I remember being reminded at a conference one time, we were going out to lunch, and they reminded us that you're making an example of that church, but of Christianity in general, and be kind to the people that are serving you. You represent something. I think I said, I don't know if I did now. I'm trying to remember because of technical things. I felt like as I was studying in college, studying the Word, the more that I knew and the more I understood about God, the bigger he got. And I felt like, I should have more control. I can wrap my arms around this. And it just kept getting bigger and bigger the more you know about God. And you can't do that anymore. He doesn't fit into our box. He's not going to do things the way we want him to do them.
And there's a whole lot more information than you'll ever be able to.
Oh, yeah. And even if you knew it all,
yeah,
you can't know it all. It's infinite. It's him.
That's a struggle, to live in the world and function and do what you got to do to stay alive. And then do all of that you can do too. It's quite a task.
It's hard to think that. Well, first of all, think that you've got control, and second, that God's going to swerve to do the way you want it done.
Yeah,
because
that's not
I think
exactly
it's
going to
best.
happen.
Yeah. No, he knows the beginning from the end, and
But it also says he knows the desires of your heart.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And we're not to lean in on our own understanding. And so the freedom of this, in my opinion, the freedom of it, of being a Christian is I can trust him with every physical need I have, every spiritual need I have, every emotional need I have. He's in a much better place because he is the source, not just a resource. I mean, you think about in marriage, probably the closest relationship you ever have on this planet is in marriage. And yet that person cannot fulfill you in every way. And if you put that pressure on them, they will fail miserably because they're not the source of your need. They are a resource. One of the things that God puts in your life to make you feel loved and appreciated and respected. And so when we wrap our minds around that a little bit, I think it helps us to know, oh, okay, I don't have to be suicidal because I lost my job, because my job is not who I am. I am his, and he's got something else for me. Whether I think it's better or worser doesn't matter. He's got something else for me.
So what's this got to do with a donkey talking?
I know, right? I think
How do you wrap that?
We're just
around?
3 good examples of donkeys that can talk right here on
There you
Like
go.
the Baptist.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
I guess that is correct, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. How do you explain that? How do you explain this?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Well, just God. God is this supernatural God that's operating in a sphere that we don't see. The animal could see it, but humans couldn't see it. And Paul talks about that. We fight against things unseen. And so I think probably a big takeaway from this is we serve a supernatural God who can make a donkey talk. He can make the winds and the waves stop. He can call dead men to life. And he's worth following. I think that's important. He's worth following. The donkey had to look at Balaam and go, I've been with you all this time.
Right.
And you haven't had to treat me this way. You know, Balaam's probably going, you're right there.
Here's something interesting that always stops me in my tracks. God's right, whether I believe that or not.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he's right all the time.
Yeah, and whether I believe it or not. So I think for the person struggling with whether or not to believe in God to begin with, needs to understand that he's right, whether you believe it or not.
Oh, you're fighting a losing battle.
You're fighting a losing battle.
There is no way you're going to be able to stand up against a holy God. You can have all your theories and all your thoughts but you're not. I mean, one day we're going to give an account. We're going to stand in his presence, and it'll either be as a friend or as a foe. And I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, you want to be his friend. You do not want to be on the bad list.
This is what we believe here at this table, and I'm just saying, if you're hearing us and you don't necessarily believe that, you need to understand. We could be wrong. We're not, I don't think. But he's right, whether we believe it or we don't believe it.
Yep.
To me, it's not a good gamble.
No.
I just don't think it's a smart gamble. You know?
Submission is a hard thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Just to bow down and say, okay.
Yeah. It is.
Give it up.
It's difficult. I'd suggest you do that if you haven't, though. It's my sermon.
Sounds good.
Let's take a break and come back and play Inny or Outty.
Hey everybody, it's time to play America's almost favoriteest new game show, Inny or Outty, where we challenge our guests to figure out if a phrase we give them is actually in the Bible or out of the Bible. Sharpen your wits, guest. You're about to be in the hot seat of Bible stuff, because you're the next contestant on Inny or Outty. Here's Mike.
Inny or Outty's just fun. During the break, Neil was just talking about he was strolling through the Vatican a week or so ago and thinking he needed to take some notes about stuff for Inny or Outty, but then he said something I really understand. He said something else caught his interest and he got distracted.
Bird, squirrel.
Yes, I know exactly how that works.
Squirrel.
Oh, that reminds me.
Does it?
I'm going to have 2 Inny or Outties.
The squirrel in there?
That's coming up. I'm going to ask that question of you guys. Are squirrels in the Bible? I'm not going to ask it today.
Okay.
So we can study.
Wow.
Actually, let me think about
That's
that.
almost
Forget
like
I said that.
Said what?
No, see? Today on Inny or Outty, I'm in the power seat once. HD's in the power seat once. Neil, you're susceptible
victim.
twice.
Yeah.
You're a sitting duck twice, but we'll go easy on you.
Thank you.
It's all in good fun. I'll start. You want me to start?
Go for it.
Is the concept 3 chords are stronger than 1 in the Bible? Or is that a modern concept? You know, you've heard the thing about 3 chords twisted together is stronger
when you
than.
officiate weddings. Yeah.
Yep. Is that in the actually in the Bible, or is that a Western culture thing, or even a medieval or cavemanish era? You know, did it come from somewhere else?
Cavemanish.
Well, I don't know what you call that. What would you call that? Paleo? No, I don't know. If you ever go to the Smithsonian and you go through the Natural History Museum, and in the back corner, you know, they've got that section where they have all the heads of how they think man progressed. That's some of the goofiest looking human beings I've ever seen in my life. It's the expressions they put on their face. I'm going through there thinking, you know, if I want somebody to believe this, I would not have put these real dorkish expressions on these guys' faces.
Well, you got to remember, they were looking at a T-Rex, so they were like,
I guess that's true, too.
Yeah.
Okay, 3 chords stronger than 1. I've heard that said in different. A 3-something rope is stronger than a
3-strand rope.
3-strand. Yeah, I've heard it said that way too. But I'm basically just asking, did that come from Scripture, or is that?
I'm pretty sure it's in there,
Yeah.
and I can't identify where.
I think it's a proverb.
That would make sense.
I
Yeah.
think it's a proverb. A 3-strand
Right.
rope is better than a 2-strand. Talk about having friends and people around you to strengthen you.
That was very
And also in the
serious,
application of marriage too,
Yeah.
for people that don't know, you're talking about the husband, the wife, and God, and that God is the integral part of that 3 chord.
And that's written into a lot of the
Yep.
ceremony stuff.
And if it's not, we put it in there
Well,
because it's good wisdom.
but you put it in there in like in a churchy way, so it's
Well,
Makes it sound good.
yeah.
I'd have to say, yeah.
I would say,
I
yeah.
think that's an inning.
yep.
That's it.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
as much as I could go with
You
today.
seem pretty sure of yourselves.
Well, we might not be, but
Well, you know, I don't know how many times it shows up. You notice
However,
I said I don't know how many times it shows up.
It is in there.
But in Ecclesiastes 4:12, though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken.
There it
So
is.
let me just say to you 2 gentlemen who have performed all these wedding ceremonies, it was scriptural. And you can back it up now. You can pound on the podium when you say 3. You know, you can say it with confidence. It is an Inny, folks.
all right.
Yep.
Got a W.
Very good one.
Continue to
Fantastic.
use that. HD, what do you have?
Well, in conjunction with your question, it's kind of funny how this works out. I didn't know how I was going to do that if you just said squirrel. But since
Maybe
we're-
next episode. I
since
think
we're
both of
talking-
y'all are
yeah.
on the next episode.
So since we're talking about ropes,
yes. Okay.
we know there was a description that when the high priest went into the Holy of Holies, that sometimes there would be a rope tied around their ankle in case they fell dead,
Right.
because there's no other way to go in and get that
Right.
person.
Right.
Is that in the Bible or not?
Whoa, that's a good one. So, Neil, the only other explanation would be that that's just in historical documents that they did it that way.
It's Hebraic, but I can't remember if it's actually in there or not. They also had a bell.
In Arkansas, we would have
Attached
just
to
said
it.
that's Hebrew.
Sorry.
No. I like the more intelligent words. They just catch me
comes
off guard
out.
sometimes. I have to filter through my Ozark dictionary.
What was he saying?
That's Hebrew, ain't
What do
it?
you mean? Yep.
I'm sorry. I'm just entertaining myself here.
That was the thing about the priest was the only one that was allowed to go in there, and I do know that I remember the whole thing about what they had to do to go in, because they had to be ritually cleansed before they could walk in, so they would,
Right.
or purified, and they still weren't pure enough. And that's one of the things about the forget. Now, when the people are passing by and they don't help the person, what's the story? Help me.
Good Samaritan?
Yeah.
One of them rubbernecking. Like,
one of them is a
interstate.
priest.
Cruising Rivergate Mall.
And I've heard it suggested that he was on his way
Right.
to do that, and he'd been ritually cleansed, so he couldn't have anybody touch him or
Oh, really?
get close to him. Right.
Oh,
I can't believe I forgot that. Thank you.
interesting.
It's the over 50 club. We have to help each other.
Who's over 50? But that was, so I know it's part of the culture. It's a part of the whole temple thing, and that, you know, you don't have to have somebody go in there for you anymore. You have direct access.
I've always heard that ever since I've been around churches. Did I just imagine that a part of that story is like if the rope twitches or something? It means, or am I thinking,
a fish
is
on?
that a fishing story I'm thinking of?
Oh, hadn't heard that. Huh.
Maybe I just made that up in my head about how you know to pull the rope back. But anyway, so it's like if they get in there and it's so holy they burn up or something, that you're gonna
Or they
save
die,
the robe.
just that they
or something.
die,
Or you're
basically,
dragging them
because
out of there.
right.
How would you know they died though? Unless the rope twitched or something.
If you called, "Hey Fred," and nobody responded,
Guess that would do it too. After 6
although
days,
the curtain was supposed to be like a foot thick or something.
Yeah, it was a
This
thick curtain.
huge curtain.
What do you think? Do you think it's in there? I don't think the rope thing's in
Boy,
there.
I'm really puzzled about that. I'm gonna say maybe it's not, but it is a part of the ritual, and it's part of the whole idea of not being able to have direct access
Right.
to God at the time, and that you had to have a priest. You would go to the priest. The priest talks to God. You don't talk to God directly.
Could you even touch the rope
That I don't know.
while he was in there?
Don't know. I'm just yanking your chain. Sorry.
I don't have a reason for thinking it's not in there, but it just sounds like a detail that might not be in scripture for some reason.
Interesting.
Talking donkey, yes. A rope
yeah.
tied to the guy, I don't know.
And it would, if it's in there, I'm thinking Leviticus or somewhere in the Torah. It's got to be in the early in there. I just
I
don't.
was thinking that too.
Just don't know. What are you trying to say?
You know that I was. We think it's an Outty.
Yeah,
Or is
we'll
that
say
right?
Outty, but
It's an Outty.
Well, you're correct.
Whoa, nice.
Outty.
2 wins.
There you go.
well,
No explanation. It's just not in
Yes,
there.
it's not in there.
Where did it come from then? So it would have come from.
Yeah, it probably was something that they did. It's just not something you read about in scripture.
Interesting. You know what I would think? I would think most people would think that's in there.
Yeah.
Because I did, but I didn't. Well, it's true. It's hard to explain.
Somehow Michael Jackson comes away from Inny or Outty being 50-50 at everything he says.
everything.
That's better than being a flat out
Yeah,
loser. I'm
yeah.
just
You
gonna
could be
tell
a
you.
politician.
Yeah.
I could. Yeah, that's how they do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's a whole
Walk right down the center.
That's a whole nother story. Okay, good round, guys. Good round.
Yeah.
We'll come back and tell everybody goodbye in a very proper fashion here shortly.
Oh, wow. What a great contestant and a fine sport today on Inny or Outty, America's almost favorite new game show. Study up, future guest people. You're next in the hot seat for Inny or Outty.
You know, we could be doing a lot of other things
Like
besides
napping.
what we're doing
Like
right
napping.
Like napping. I have a toothache today. H has some sort of a
Hack.
hack.
Yeah.
Neil's medicated.
Yeah.
It could be, we could be all be doing something different. But you know what? If you're watching or listening, we did this for you. So you better appreciate it, okay? Just appreciate it, would you?
Send us your
Anyway.
food.
Send some food. You know, we had some food while you were gone, Neil.
Oh,
A
that's
friend
good.
of ours made some molasses cookies, and they were great. They were really good. It made me think more people should send food over here for us to review. It's just it's good. It's good reassurance for anybody that's trying to cook something to know that someone likes
Appreciates it. Yeah.
appreciates it. And I promise you, we will appreciate it,
Yes.
even if we don't like it.
Yes.
we'll appreciate that you did it.
Effort.
Comments at MikeTheBaptist.com. Or if you know me, just find me in town and bring me something. And we'll review it here. We'll probably say your name. We'll pick on you a little bit. Now look, if we don't like it, you'll never know it. Because it wouldn't be the Christian thing to do, to get on here publicly and say that stinks. But we know most people that would bring us things anyway. And so I'm going to quit talking now because I'm talking myself into a pretty deep rut right here. But anyway, look us up. Thanks for joining us, Neil. Neil DeAndrews made it back from Italy safe.
Thank you.
Jet lag's almost over, he said.
Yeah.
That's good. HD, I'll see you around the sticks and the woods and the hollers
Sounds good.
of like mind. I'm Mike the Baptist. See you next time. Remember, folks, we're all just Christians.
Trying.
Not to.
Cuss. I never get to say that.
There you go.
Still. It's because you're not supposed to
Cuss.
cuss.
See you next time.
Mike the Baptist.